When you want to think like a CEO, you need to think strategically. Too often, there are leaders with amazing potential who are held back from advancing in their career because they're being labeled and seen as tactical but not strategic. You might have experienced this yourself. Let's say you've been working as a consultant for a number of years. You've built up a lot of hands-on experience, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of skill. You're great at following processes and solving short-term problems, but when it comes to new problems, long-term problems, like how your services can stay in demand in the age of AI, you find it hard to come up with compelling ideas or a good course of action. Because there are too many variables to take into consideration, there are too many unknowns, the issue just becomes way too complex. So you decide it's much easier to just not look at it at all. And this is where leaders who think strategically differ from those who don't. They can tackle those long-term problems and even goals because they have that forward-thinking ability. This long-term forward-thinking ability is the secret to thinking like a CEO, and it's exactly what you need to learn how to do if you want to reach those higher level positions. But how exactly do you develop that long-term forward-thinking ability? First, you need to gather as much information as you can about the situation that you're facing or the situation that you are going to face in the future, especially when you're in front of a new problem or a new issue. You need to understand what you're up against, so you need to gather as much information as you can. Think of a pilot flying into a storm. They don't just fly into the storm not gathering any information about it at all. No, they and the air traffic control, they work together to gather as much information as they can. They look at the weather radars, they look at satellite imagery, and they use their knowledge of thunderstorm formation in order to find the best path through that storm. CEOs do exactly the same type of information gathering when they are in front of a new problem or a new goal that they have never achieved before. And you should start to do this same information gathering yourself too. Start to read articles or research about the issue or the situation that you're facing. Google is your best friend here. You might even like to try ChatGPT or even Claude. Observe what your competitors are doing or what other people in complementary industries are doing to deal with the problem that you're facing. And have conversations with your colleagues where you all present the information that you've gathered and have a discussion around it. And when you're in that group discussion, you should put your thinking cap on and start to ask smart questions or strategic questions to drive that conversation forward. I think a lot of the time in meetings, people hold back from asking questions. They do this because they don't want to seem incompetent by asking what they might fear is a silly question. They don't have the confidence to jump into a discussion and actually ask the question, or they're worried about confrontation from somebody who might disagree with them in the group. And this is a real shame because it's with smart questions that CEOs can learn things that they never knew before. Questions that use words like why, how, or what if. For example, why is AI so important in the workplace today? How are other companies implementing it or using it? And what happens if we don't implement or use AI in our workflows? And the last question, what if, is one of my favorites to unlock strategic thinking because it forces us to look at hypothetical scenarios and to explore them in a safe way. These two words, what if, force you to think outside the box, to remove limitations or noise in your thinking that might prevent you from seeing a clear path toward a big goal that you have or from seeing a solution to a complex problem that you're facing. Let's do a little activity to see the impact of this what if question. So I'm going to ask you, what if you didn't care about what other people thought? How would you answer that? Some people might say, well, I would speak up more often at work. I would do the things that I really want to do, or I wouldn't feel so confined in my life. I think this question is a topical one for many people in this community and many people watching these YouTube videos. So I want you to write in the comments below your answer to this question. What if you didn't care about what other people thought? How would that change you? How would that change your life? How would that change what you do at work or in your personal life? Write it in the comments below. And I encourage you to use this what if question the next time you're doing a brainstorming activity with your colleagues at work. So think of 2 to 3 scenarios and then rephrase them using the what if question. For example, what if our competitors copy our product? Or what if this product exceeds our expectations in terms of revenue? And this should leave you with a number of different options or answers after you have unlocked those limitations and that noise from your thinking. You should be left with a number of different options that you can start discussing with your colleagues. And then once you've discussed, you can then go back and think and reflect on what those options are, which is the next point that we're going to talk about now. CEOs understand that not all decisions need to be made straight away. They can take the time to think and to reflect on the options that are available to them. They can think and reflect about the information that they have gathered and think and reflect about the discussions that they've had with their colleagues after using the what if questions. And then at a later date, at a later time, they can then make the decision that they need to make. This thinking and reflecting, it isn't always easy to do because the higher you climb, the busier you get and the less time you have for actual thinking and reflecting. So the only way out of this is if you allocate time in your schedule on a regular basis for thinking and reflecting. Now, what I like to do is I like to think and walk. I found that by moving my body at the same time as thinking, it really helps me to get a lot more clarity on the thoughts that I have and to think a lot deeper about them as well. So whenever I'm facing a challenging problem or something complex that I really need to put a lot of thought into, I go for a walk outside, but I always take a notebook or a piece of paper in my pocket. Now, the solution doesn't always come from that first walk. Sometimes I need to take a couple of walks or even a few walks to think more about the problem or the solution and to really get clarity on the decision that I need to make. But I do find that with every walk that I take, I do get a little bit closer to making a clearer decision. And sometimes decisions are just difficult to make, especially if we're talking about a long-term decision. This is what I find anyway. I find that with long-term issues that you need to think about or long-term decisions that you need to make right now, it can be really difficult because there are so many unknowns, there are so many variables involved, and we can't see into the future, right? So it's very difficult to know which is the right decision to make. A lot of those times, the decision can become so overwhelming that we make no decision at all. But CEOs know that rather than making no decision at all, it is better to make a decision. And sometimes those decisions need to be courageous. And the way they usually go about this is they spend time gathering the information that they need. They spend time asking smart questions to really think about that problem. They use the what if scenarios that we talked about previously as well to gather some options that are available to them. They also spend time thinking and reflecting about the options and about the decision that they need to make. So CEOs know that going through all of these steps that we have talked about in this video, it will help them to make the courageous decisions that they need to make, and it will help them make those decisions, even risky decisions as well. When CEOs do this, they know that in a worst case scenario, they can change direction if they need to. They are flexible in their way of thinking and in the decisions that they make as well. So they know that if something doesn't work out, they can pivot and they can change direction if they need to. Now, once you start thinking like a strategic leader, like we've talked about in this video, next you need to start communicating like a strategic leader too. And that I'm going to cover in an upcoming video on this channel. So make sure you subscribe to be notified when I release that video and hit the notification bell too, so you are actually notified. And in the meantime, you should watch this video here to learn how to become a genius strategic thinker, and this one up here to learn mental models for strategic thinking. So watch those two videos once you finish this one. Thank you to all my channel members for supporting me in creating these YouTube videos. I really appreciate you and the support that you have given me. If you want to become a channel member, then check out my main YouTube page because all of the information is there. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next week in another video.